Good afternoon. My name is Ken Kaplan. I'm grateful to be here today, and I thank you for allowing me to moderate this panel. First, if we could, like just introduce the panel here. Chris Crocker with Pacific Sotheby's, who is the COO. Chris.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Ashley McEvers with Willis Allen. She's the Business Development Manager.
Hi, everyone.
And last but not least, Jeremiah Taylor. I didn't
Hello.
put these on here in order, so.
Yeah.
I think what we'd like to do is start with a brief introduction from all of you, if you wouldn't mind, a couple of minutes about what you've done and where you've come from and your take on this International Congress and working with international buyers. So if you'd each take a couple of minutes, that would be great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll start us off. Hi, everyone. Ashley McEvers here. I represent Willis Allen Real Estate. We are a local luxury independent agency, and I oversee and manage all of our national and international referral operations. So I am certainly pleased to work hand in hand with many of you in this room around the world. And we do a ton of international work as I oversee all of that cross-border activity. A lot of it is really education and promotion and creating awareness for not only opportunities here in the local market, but opportunities for our clients for their real estate needs anywhere outside of this area. So we are really, really lucky. We partner with Christie's International Real Estate, as well as leading real estate companies of the world, and it's created a lot of international traffic and activity that we've seen here, in particular in the San Diego market, and what we're referring outside to our partners. So,
Great. Chris?
So hi, Chris Crocker, here on behalf of Pacific Sotheby's International Realty. We are the exclusive Sotheby's franchise owner for the San Diego County Marketplace. A very young company, only about 4 years old in its expansion mode, but already the fastest growing company in America. We're, I think, 600-ish agents and growing, and about 25 offices in a very short amount of time. Just shy of $2.7 billion transacted annually in just a few short years. So we're, obviously the Sotheby's brand works very well internationally, and we'll talk a little bit about that today.
We will. Good. Jeremiah?
So, Jeremiah Taylor, I run the Keller Williams Realty franchise that encompasses most of North County, coastal San Diego. I oversee about 400 agents, just over $1 billion in real estate transacted this year. But I also have a role where I work with a lot of our international master franchisees. So as somebody goes to purchase a Keller Williams franchise internationally, I often work with them to develop and implement the models and systems that we've used here stateside in their local markets. And so I've got a very dynamic experience in working with so many different countries. In fact, this morning we were with 50 delegates from China, and just learning and seeing how special and different that process is in each of these countries and the way that they transact business has just been a privilege.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. And just so people have a better knowledge about myself, I've worked as a buyer's agent for almost in the 19th year here in San Diego and 6 in New York, and have had quite a bit of experience working with international buyers and buyers who are foreign nationals as well as resident aliens who are here to work or go to school. And I think that this panel's, you've got a great wealth of knowledge here between everyone who's here that you can pick their brains afterwards, you can ask questions. We'd like to give you, I think we all talked about this earlier, some takeaways on what we feel have been very successful practices and implementations of practices for all these buyers who are coming in from overseas and other areas. So if you would talk on what you see the international buyer needing before they can purchase in this market, what would you say would be the most important fact or facts that you would like to educate them with before they purchase? Please, anyone, yeah.
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
So actually, when you look at the international transactions that happen, they tend to be focused in a couple of key areas in America. At least they start there and then they emigrate to other places. Mm-hmm. And I think the one takeaway that I actually have seen across the whole country is that San Diego really is an incredible bargain compared to the other major destinations in America right now. If you look at what your money will buy for you in, say, San Francisco or Seattle or Washington, D.C. or New York City, which is probably has the highest cost per square foot anywhere, perhaps in the world, the product you can get for the same dollar point in this marketplace is really phenomenal. And the international community, while there's a lot of activity here, has not woken up at the same level of scale they've woken up on a Miami, on a San Francisco, on a Seattle or a Vancouver. So we're kind of late to that game, and they're just discovering what an amazing city this is.
Sure. Jeremiah?
I think one of the biggest things to pay attention to is when we look at where international buyers come from and where they find their agents, the single biggest segment of that is the Chinese buying here in California. About 35% of the international buyers in California are Chinese. And when we look at that, the majority of them are buying homes to be owner users. And so they're finding their agent. Almost half of them have cited the primary way that they found their agent was through a referral or a relationship. Second to that was the internet at about 20%. So you can cover 70 to 75% of the ground of finding international buyers by working your relationships at events like this and by having a great online presence. And I think the thing that you have to be cognizant of is the realities and the differences of the market from here to other parts of the country. So for example, yesterday I spent the 2 days with our folks from South Africa. In South Africa, it's 3 years of school followed by 3 years of internship before you can become what they call an estate agent. So being a real estate agent in South Africa is one of the most revered positions in their country. Now, it hasn't always been that way. Tomorrow, I'll be with our delegates from Turkey. Well, in Turkey, you decide today that you want to be a real estate agent, and now you are a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. On Friday, I'll have the same experience with Mexico. The U.S. is very different in that we have formalized licensing and broker-to-broker cooperation that in other parts of the world just frankly do not exist.
And multiple listing services.
Mm-hmm. And multiple listing services. And so understanding those fundamental differences and who your buyer is and how their local market works so that you can truly educate them on how our market works and what the nuances they're going to experience are, I think just starting there really sets you ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, no, Jeremiah, I think he covered it beautifully. I mean, so much of it, because of the differences in how we all transact and do business, varies from country to country. As I work with a lot of our international clients who are coming in, and I am really sort of the first step in the process before I match them up with one of our agents. So kind of being a liaison in that sense and ensuring that they're aware of a lot of, again, how business operates here in San Diego in particular, which can even vary from New York, where a lot of the real estate process is done with attorneys. So I think establishing those relationships, continued education and awareness, and really building that trust with these clients that you're working with, even if they're inquiring online and they're coming from a variety of different areas. I think establishing that trust and that you are a trusted advisor and you're not just somebody on the other end who says, I want to make a deal. So That's a big part of it as well.
I agree, and I think one tool that most of us have at our disposal that some use and some do not is the ability to do a FaceTime or a Skype session with a client from overseas really is critical because they can put a name to a face. They can see your expressions. They can get what your inferences are as you're speaking with them. You can sit in your conference room. You can sit at a map. You can point out different areas, different regions, the pros and cons to each in real time and not to be interpreted or misinterpreted by a language difference or not seeing the inflection from the other buyer. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And that's, we feel, is a large piece of the puzzle that can be utilized, that is underutilized, we believe. And what are your experiences with clients who are international clients obtaining loans? Versus cash? Tell me we did a little bit of research about that and would like to get your take on that.
So in our experience, about 60% of the international purchasers in our universe are paying with cash. Mm-hmm. So what that tells us is that really lines up with the ones that are owner users are typically the ones that are getting financing. If they're sending a student abroad, they're probably not financing that. Those are cash purchases. We see a lot of the second home, vacation home, those are cash purchases. Generally, knowing the financing processes in the country that they come from can be a real trick. One thing that was new to me is we had a client that we suggested getting a loan to where in his native nation, he could be sent to jail for taking debt in an American country. Who knew? So those nuances and having the context to be able to give him good advice and to go to panels like this to really get the understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's nothing that is more underrated than being educated for your international consumer and knowing the country that they're coming from and understanding a bit of the laws and the minute differences that there are from country to country. Yes, sorry, Scott.
Yeah. I just think that you also have to have reputable resources available. It's one thing to say that you can refer them to somebody who's going to, offer and be a liaison sort of in the finance assistance side, but you've really got to know who you're referring these people to. I mean, anybody can pick up the phone and say, yeah, I've got an international product and, I can put together a phenomenal loan structure for your client from overseas. But at the end of the day, there are so many things where it could go awry. I think you've really got to have, again, true and trusted partners that you're working with here locally and around the world.
I would agree.
Yeah, so we see a fair amount of cash, as everybody else mentioned. We also see high net worth individuals moving assets onshore, businesses, and the businesses could purchase on behalf of them. We also see an interesting phenomenon that the documentation process that we all have in America in the form of an employee gets a W-2 and you submit that W-2 to your lender may not be the case in a lot of the foreign countries. And something as simple as show me that you actually paid your taxes last year as an actual application process for an American loan can be a problem for somebody who can't prove that they paid their taxes because their country takes many months to process the tax and the check hasn't cleared yet. We can show you a photocopy of a check, but if it hasn't cleared yet, then our American lenders say, well, you didn't pay your taxes.
Correct.
So that creates complexity. Most of the time it gets solved, though. But the interesting phenomenon I'm seeing, though, is the banking institutions are becoming global, where you can stick your HSBC ATM card in practically halfway around the planet and pull out $100.
Yeah.
Move funds across border relatively easy. It's becoming a lot easier to transfer funds.
And we're seeing individuals, sorry, go ahead, Jeremiah.
So two things to think about. One is that as you're transacting international business, you have these multinational lenders, like Chris said. For example, Citibank has a language assistance desk. And if you're working with them as an agent, they'll do the translation for you. The other thing is, how many of you have done a transaction where Bitcoin was involved? Mm-hmm. So a lot of these companies...
Was there one? I didn't see anybody.
I don't see anybody.
Anybody?
Yeah.
So a lot of these countries, they have the cash locked down, and a workaround that we see a lot in our Manhattan office is agents that are leveraging Bitcoin to transfer funds to affect cash transactions. So just being aware, understanding, knowing even what Bitcoin is, and the cryptocurrencies and the currencies of the future.
And also, I would say, being that this is international, knowing and understanding what the limitations are with countries that will not allow a client to move excessive funds over, and like the Chinese market, which is changing, and the recent laws that they put in place to limit the amount of cash that's coming out of the country and going into a foreign country. These are ever changing, and it's really important that we all stay up to date, as well as with lenders and lending options, as well as hard money lenders who are willing to, with 35, 40% down, they'll loan on it. It may be a higher interest rate. There may be 2 points involved, but the bottom line is, your client, if they were looking to pick up this property and this was the property for them, it gives them and enables them to purchase a property and then refinance within 6 months without any kind of major hammering on fees. And then I guess, one of the things, before coming here, I spoke with the FBI, I spoke with the Treasury Department, I spoke with the IRS, and I asked them if there were any particular points that they would like us to come and tell you about. One thing is there is a new phishing scheme that is out there that some of you may or may not have been made aware of, and the agent who I spoke with had asked me to make sure we convey this to you, is that there is a large phishing scheme now that's going on with real estate in particular, where you will get a lead from an anonymous source, and they will say, we're interested in this property, we're interested in purchasing this property, and you need to click on this link so we can tell you how we do our purchases. And once you clicked on that link, it then has gone into your, as a Trojan virus, has gone into your system and then now gotten in touch with your database. And then has the capacity, and what they've done is they've actually sent out fraudulent would be the proper word, wiring instructions for your clients to send wires to who are currently in transactions. Now, it was new to me when I had heard this from the agent until I was speaking to the rest of the panel, and it's rampant right now. How many of you have heard of this phishing scheme in particular? Everybody look around.
Look at that.
It's out
Everybody.
there.
More than
Now,
Bitcoin.
people may not talk
more than
about it
Bitcoin.
much, but it's really, it's really important to talk to your clients about, especially those from international countries where they may or may not have a direct phone conversation with you on a daily basis, to make sure that they are aware of the fact that please verify before you do anything that you touch base with me and confirm. Any other points that you'd
All
like
the
to-
more reason I would say that at the end of the day, establishing connections with your sources in each country that you're either doing referral business with or, what have you on the real estate side. I think, that way you have the ability to contact a verified source, even if you get something that looks, like it could be fishy, which I encounter all the time. And then clearly most of you in this room do as well. So I think, again, having those contacts and being able to pick up the phone and say, by the way, talk to me about the actual validity of what you just sent, because this doesn't look like something that may have come from you. But you could be thinking it's a referral opportunity and what have you.
So I would add to that, one of the key elements that we've seen in the phishing scams is somebody who's impersonating somebody via communication method. So you think you're dealing with a trusted party that you do business with, but it's somebody else who's basically hijacked their account and sent them. In our case, we're requiring notarized changes for all escrow wires in San Diego now because the problem's become severe enough. And even when the person that you're dealing with says, I'd like to change this, we're then calling and verifying and then ensuring that they're notarizing those changes.
And one part of this phishing scheme that the agent had spoken to me about is most individuals, when you're dealing with a trusted source, if we're going back and forth on emails, if you got an email from me and it said Ken Kaplan at the top, that's fine. But if you're not clicking the entire view details and expanding that header and you're expanding that email line of exactly what the email address is, you'd notice that they actually took your name, put a plural at the end of it, and then at that point, they've sent it out. And because you didn't expand it or your client didn't expand it, at that point, they're on the hook. They're hook, line, and sinker already invested in this, and they're thinking that it is a legitimate email from you saying send funds. So that was one thing that they made a point of, so I want to make sure we get that across. And the other thing is, do an initial consultation, even if it is by Skype, even if it is by FaceTime. There's no reason why you can't do an initial consultation like you would have a client in your office via one of many different sources and ways to do that. We feel that that's been a great help in educating our clients, as well as I'm sure you have as well. Any other topics you guys would like to hit on before we let these people go on their way?
Sure. We've seen a couple really interesting new trends. So Sotheby's International Realty studies ultra-high net worth individuals. A lot of the cross-border and international transactions happen to be with ultra-high net worth individuals. We define that as somebody who has more than $30 million in net worth. And what's interesting is that there are a lot of them in America, and a lot of them are coming to America. So we see quite a bit of transactions, and it's becoming truly a global marketplace. The two trends that were the takeaway in the research we just did that were really shocking to us were the demand for LEED certified homes in America has gone up almost 10%. And so the sustainability of the house is becoming a key component that we're seeing this. And this trend also is replicated in Canada, also replicated in London, also replicated in China. So high net worth individuals demanding an eco-friendly home, not just a statement home. Even better would be a statement home that is eco-friendly. But on top of that, the technical sophistication of the house. So all of the things that we're used to in our daily life that we can do with our smartphone, why can't my house do that as well? And when you have second home ownership or third ownership or fourth home ownership, the ability for the home to be intelligent and send alerts to the principal elsewhere has become a demand item that we're seeing inside our company. We polled the entire Sotheby's network. 65% of the agents in the Sotheby's network said in the last year they received a request from a high net worth individual for a smart home. And that the product doesn't always match that. So there's a trend we're on the beginning of here. So if there's builders in the room or people that are building developments for people that are coming, two trends to watch that you might find very interesting.
Nice. I guess there's two takeaways I'd like to probably leave you with. Is one is making sure that your clients who are here internationally and may or may not know our system and may or may not know how the taxes work for property taxes, making sure that they've got a way to make sure they're getting their tax bills and they're paying their tax bills on time. So whether that's establishing a P.O. box, whether that's getting a forwarding address, whatever that may be, so once they're in, they're not going to have any issues with getting delinquent tax bills in the mail. And then the other part was making sure that though it is an international transaction, treat it as if you would any regular buyer that you would have here as well, in the sense that write a cover letter. Have your clients put down some information about themselves, because in a market that's hot, in a market that's really moving, cash isn't always the final factor in which a seller will choose your offer. If the seller feels that there is some sort of connection with that buyer, whether it's family, whether it's whatever it may be that you can glean from walking through the property that may be a bridge to your buyer, it may be important to put down in a letter and as a cover letter with your proof of funds when you send your offer over.
Great.
Anybody else? Anything else?
Thank you for all the guests in town that are visiting our fine city.
Yes.
It's fabulous to have you here. We hope you fall in love, and we certainly hope
Any
you'd like to buy a
questions
property
anybody
here.
has that we can answer before you go?
There's a lot of talented people in the room that help you buy a
Yeah,
property in San Diego.
exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
Thank
We
you for
all
joining
work
us.
together.
Thank you very much.